A millionaire patient pretends to be in a coma, but when he hears his nurse's confession... Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. Tonight's story begins inside the quiet halls of St. Mary's Hospital in downtown Chicago. The fluorescent lights hummed softly above the polished floors, and the faint scent of antiseptic lingered in the air. The night shift had just begun when nurse Anna Monroe was called to the head doctor's office. She was 26 years old, dedicated, and known for her gentle patience with patients no one else could handle. Still, something about this call made her heart race. When she entered, Dr. Harris stood by the wide window overlooking the city skyline. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "Anna, we have a special case," he said. "It requires discretion and absolute focus. It will not be easy." Anna straightened her posture. "Yes, doctor. Who is the patient?" He turned to her and placed a thick file on the desk. On the cover was a name written in bold, Ethan Ward. The photograph below showed a man in his early 30s with dark hair and sharp eyes. Anna blinked. She knew that name. Ethan Ward was the billionaire founder of Ward Biotech, a company that had transformed the pharmaceutical industry. A car accident had left him in a coma 3 months ago. The tabloids called him the sleeping tycoon. Dr. Harris continued. "He is stable but unresponsive. His family has requested around-the-clock care. You will be responsible for his nightly routine monitoring vitals, physical therapy, and emotional support." Anna nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the assignment. "I understand." That night, she walked through the dim corridor leading to the private suite on the top floor. The doors opened with a soft mechanical hiss. Inside, the room looked less like a hospital and more like a luxury apartment. Dark oak furniture, warm lighting, and large windows revealing the quiet city below. In the center of the room lay Ethan Ward. He looked peaceful, almost too peaceful. Tubes and monitors surrounded him, their rhythmic beeping the only sound. His face was calm, but there was strength in the lines of his jaw, a hint of life behind the stillness. Anna stepped closer, her footsteps soft on the tile. She checked his vitals, adjusted the drip, and wrote notes in her file. Everything seemed normal. Yet, as she reached to straighten his blanket, she felt an odd shiver run down her spine like someone watching from behind closed eyes. She brushed it off and tried to smile. "Well, Mr. Ward," she whispered, "looks like it is just you and me tonight." What Anna did not know was that Ethan could hear every word. Behind his closed eyelids, his mind was awake, his body trapped. He had chosen to remain silent, pretending to be in a coma, to uncover who among his family and partners was loyal and who wanted him gone. Each breath he took was deliberate, each still moment a calculated lie. But when he heard Anna's voice soft, sincere, filled with compassion, it struck something inside him that had nothing to do with business or betrayal. She hummed quietly as she prepared the basin of warm water for his evening care routine. Steam rose, carrying the scent of soap. Her hands moved gently as she spoke to him about the hospital's chaos, her mother's illness, and her dream of one day opening a small care home for patients who had no one. Ethan listened, motionless, every word sinking into the silence that surrounded him. He had hired detectives, lawyers, and security experts to uncover truth, but this woman, talking to him as if he were human, not a headline, was the first real truth he had felt in months. Outside, thunder rumbled softly. Anna glanced toward the window, then back at him. "You know," she said quietly, "I think people can still hear when they are asleep like this. So, if you can hear me, Mr. Ward, hang in there. Do not give up." The heart monitor quickened slightly. Anna smiled, thinking it was coincidence. Ethan, hidden beneath layers of deception, wanted to speak to thank her, to tell her that her voice was the only thing keeping him sane. But he could not yet. And so, beneath the hum of machines and the soft rain tapping against the glass, began a connection that neither of them could have predicted, a connection born in silence, destined to test the limits of truth, kindness, and love. The next morning, Sunlight slipped through the blinds of the private suite at St. Mary's Hospital. The city outside was already awake, horns echoing faintly through the glass. Inside, the world of Nurse Anna Monroe revolved around quiet routines, the rhythm of machines, the scent of disinfectant, and the fragile stillness of the man she cared for. Every day began the same way. She checked his blood pressure, adjusted the oxygen level, and noted the readings in neat handwriting. She spoke softly as she worked, a habit that made her colleagues smile. "Talking to a patient who cannot answer back again?" one nurse teased. Anna only shrugged. "Maybe he can hear me," she replied. What no one knew was that Ethan Ward could. Beneath the calm surface of his motionless body, his mind followed every sound, the rustle of her uniform, the hum of the lights, the steadiness in her voice. Dr. Harris entered mid-morning, his clipboard under one arm. "How is our patient?" "Stable," Anna answered. "No physical change, but his vitals are strong." "Good. Maintain the schedule. Family meeting this afternoon. They will want updates." "Oh?" After the doctor left, Anna tidied the room. A framed photo stood on the nightstand, a younger Ethan shaking hands at a charity gala. His confident smile in the picture was a sharp contrast to the silent figure before her. She sat beside him for a moment. "I read about you," she said quietly. "You donated millions to medical research. I wonder if anyone is doing that for you now." Her phone buzzed. A message from her landlord reminded her that rent was overdue. Her stomach nodded, but she slipped the phone away and took a deep breath. "One thing at a time, Anna," she whispered. That evening, a storm rolled in. Rain lashed against the windows while thunder grumbled over the city. The other nurses moved quickly, checking equipment, but Anna stayed with Ethan. The sound of rain against the glass reminded her of the night her mother had been admitted to a public hospital years ago. She remembered sitting by her bedside, promising she would never let another patient feel forgotten. She leaned closer to Ethan, lowering her voice. "I am not sure anyone has told you this lately, but you are not alone." Ethan felt his pulse quicken. He had spent weeks in this self-imposed silence, listening to greed and fear leak from the conversations of those who visited his lawyers, his half-brother, the board members who discussed control of his company while standing at his bedside. But Anna's words were different. They carried no agenda, no ambition, only quiet sincerity. Later, she brought in a small portable speaker and set it on the table. "I hope you like music, Mr. Ward. This one helps me breathe when things get hard." The soft notes of Clair de Lune filled the room, washing over the machines and the cold walls. She hummed along, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's thoughts slowed with the melody. For the first time since the accident, he did not think about betrayal or loss, only about the warmth of her presence and the life she carried in every movement. Hours passed. Anna wrote her nightly notes. Patient stable. Emotional care maintained. Responds with consistent heart rhythm under music stimulus. She smiled at her own line. "Maybe you just like Debussy," she murmured, glancing at him. The heart monitor flickered slightly faster. She laughed softly. "See? I knew you could hear me." In that moment, Ethan realized that this woman, this stranger, had become his anchor. Every lie he had told, every reason for his deception, began to feel heavier. When she left for her short break, he wanted to call out, to say her name, to thank her for the way her kindness filled the silence. But his plan was not finished. There were still people he needed to expose, truths to uncover. So he stayed still, his mind awake in a prison of his own design, listening to the echo of her footsteps fade down the hall. From that night on, Anna's presence became the light in his endless darkness. She spoke to him about the world beyond the hospital walls, about her mother's treatment, about the stray cat that waited for her outside the staff entrance, about her dream to create a care home for patients forgotten by their families. And Ethan listened, learning that healing did not always come from medicine or wealth. Sometimes, it came from the sound of a gentle voice reminding you that you were still alive. As midnight approached, Anna whispered before turning off the lamp. "Good night, Mr. Ward. I will see you in the morning." Ethan's lips twitched almost a smile, though no one saw it. Outside, the storm eased, leaving only the steady hum of machines and the faint echo of Clair de Lune lingering in the air. Carrying a promise, neither of them yet understood. Days passed, and the routine inside St. Mary's Hospital continued like the slow ticking of a clock. Morning light, quiet footsteps, the hum of machines. For most of the staff, Ethan Ward was simply another long-term patient, rich, famous, but unreachable. For Nurse Anna Monroe, he had become something more. Every night, she brought warmth into the cold, sterile room. She talked to him as if he were a friend, sometimes teasing, sometimes whispering her worries. "You know, Mr. Ward," she said one evening, adjusting his blanket, "I think you have the best view in the hospital. Maybe that is the secret to your peace." She smiled, unaware that he could hear her every word. One afternoon, Dr. Harris asked her to stay after rounds. "Anna," he said, removing his glasses, "I want you to know that your patient's neurological scans show small improvements. Nothing dramatic, but enough to keep hope alive." Her eyes widened. "So you mean there is a chance he might wake up?" "A small chance," the doctor replied. "But remember, these cases are unpredictable. Focus on consistency. Keep doing what you are doing." Anna left his office with a small spark of happiness burning in her chest. That night, she sat by Ethan's bedside, writing notes in her journal. "I heard good news today," she whispered. "Dr. Harris said your brain is more active. Maybe it is because of the music. Maybe it is because you are stubborn. Either way, I will be here." She tucked the small notebook into the drawer by his bed, not realizing that Ethan could see its reflection faintly in the glass cabinet opposite him. His heartbeat quickened at the sight of her handwriting, tiny, neat, full of life. That same night, Anna decided to share something new. She opened her phone and played a voice message her mother had sent earlier. The older woman's voice was faint but cheerful. "Sweetheart, do not worry about me. I am doing better. Just make sure you eat, all right?" Anna laughed softly. "She always says that. She never remembers that I live on coffee and hope." The heart monitor gave a small jump, and Anna froze, staring at the green line pulsing faster. "Ethan?" she whispered. "Can you hear me?" She leaned closer, eyes wide. "If you can hear me, move your hand, just a little." Nothing happened, only the steady rhythm of the machine. She sighed and placed her hand gently on his. "Maybe I imagined it." But Ethan had tried. The effort sent a jolt of pain through his arm. His body still refused to obey his mind. He wanted to tell her that he had heard every word, that her laughter was the first sound that made him feel human again. When Anna left for a few minutes to check another room, Ethan's thoughts wandered. He remembered the day of the crash, the argument with his half-brother, and the moment he realized the brakes had failed. The accident had not been random. He had faked the depth of his coma afterward, waiting for proof before confronting anyone. But now, his plan was colliding with something unexpected, her kindness. Later that evening, Anna returned with a small speaker and a thermos of tea. "My shift ends soon," she said. "But before I go, I want to play something different." She scrolled through her playlist and chose a recording of rain sounds mixed with piano. "It helps me sleep," she explained. "Maybe it will help you dream of something better." As the room filled with the gentle rhythm of rain, she began to hum again. Ethan felt the sound vibrate somewhere deep inside him, as if his soul recognized her tune. Anna looked at his still face and sighed. "You know, sometimes I think talking to you helps me more than it helps you. You do not interrupt, you do not judge, you just listen. Maybe that is why I keep coming back." She smiled sadly, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "Good night, Ethan. I hope tomorrow brings a miracle." After she turned off the lights and left, Ethan's mind raced. Her words echoed in the silence. "You just listen." For years, he had commanded rooms, silenced people with power and money. Now, trapped in stillness, he had learned to listen and to feel. He focused every bit of strength into one thought. Move. Just once. Show her. The muscles in his right hand twitched. It was a faint movement, barely visible, but it happened. The heart monitor beeped faster. When Anna returned to check on him moments later, she froze. "Dr. Harris," she called. His hand moved. I swear it did. The doctor hurried in, scanning the monitors. "It could be a reflex," he said calmly, "but it is a good sign." Anna's face glowed with hope. "Then we will take it as progress." As she looked down at him, her smile soft and radiant, Ethan knew something inside him had shifted. For the first time since the accident, he did not think of revenge or control. He thought of her voice, her courage, and the possibility of redemption through love. Outside, dawn began to break, painting the sky over Chicago with soft shades of rose and gold. In the quiet room, a single truth formed between them, unspoken but real. He was supposed to be asleep, but she had already begun to wake him up. The following week brought a new rhythm to St. Mary's Hospital. Every morning, Nurse Anna Monroe entered Ethan Ward's suite with a spark of quiet excitement. The faint twitch of his hand had ignited something inside her, proof that he was still fighting, proof that she was not talking to an empty shell. She began to add small touches to her care routine. A vase of fresh lilies on the nightstand, a playlist of soft classical pieces that shifted with each day's mood. She even read short stories aloud during her breaks, her voice filling the room like sunlight. "You would like this one," she said, turning the page. "It is about a man who forgot how to feel, until someone reminded him what kindness was." Ethan listened, caught between guilt and longing. He had heard every word, every note, every heartbeat in her voice. And now, as the storm within him grew stronger, his resolve began to blur. What had started as a calculated deception to uncover the people who had betrayed him was turning into something deeper. He was beginning to care. Dr. Harris noticed the difference. During rounds, he tapped the monitor screen thoughtfully. "His neural activity continues to rise," he said. "Whatever you are doing, Nurse Monroe, keep it up." "Oh," Anna smiled, though her eyes glistened. "It is not science, doctor. It is faith." That night, the rain returned, soft and persistent against the windows. Anna dimmed the lights and began her nightly check. She adjusted his pillow, brushed her fingers lightly over his wrist to feel the pulse, then sat in her usual chair. "You scared me last week," she whispered. "When your hand moved, I almost cried. I know some people say I imagine things, but I do not care. I believe you can hear me." Ethan wanted to speak, to tell her she was right. Instead, a faint tear escaped from the corner of his closed eye. Anna froze. "Oh my, Ethan!" She leaned forward, her breath trembling. "Can you hear me right now?" No answer. Only the gentle rhythm of the machines. She wiped the tear gently, whispering, "It is all right. You do not have to rush. Just know that I am here." "Oh." As she wrote her nightly report, she hesitated, then added a note at the bottom of the page. "Patient may be responding emotionally to stimulus." She closed the file carefully, unaware that Ethan's heart monitor had quickened again the moment she said her name. Hours later, when the hospital hallways fell silent, Anna dozed off in the chair beside him. The glow of the monitors painted her face in soft blue light. Ethan forced his fingers to move again, an effort that made every muscle ache, but this time, he managed a slow, deliberate motion. His hand brushed against hers, where it rested on the edge of the bed. She stirred slightly, half awake, and instinctively closed her fingers around his. "You are safe," she murmured in her sleep. For the first time, Ethan felt warmth that no medicine could replicate. The weight of isolation lifted. When morning came, Anna woke to find her hand still clasping his. Her cheeks flushed as she pulled away, embarrassed, then smiled through the exhaustion. "Good morning, Mr. Ward. You made it through another night." She stepped to the window, drawing open the curtains. Light poured into the room, scattering across the polished floor and the silver monitors. She turned back to him. "You know," she said softly, "I think we both did." Oh. In that golden light, the silent billionaire and the weary nurse shared a fragile connection, unspoken, unseen, but strong enough to change the course of both their lives. And while the world outside carried on without noticing, inside that quiet room, something miraculous had already begun. Days blurred into weeks, and hope quietly rooted itself in the rhythm of St. Mary's Hospital. The world beyond Ethan Ward's private suite moved in constant motion, sirens wailing, phones ringing, footsteps echoing down long hallways, but inside his room, time softened. Nurse Anna Monroe's presence filled every moment. She greeted him each morning with her calm voice, her confidence growing with every small sign of progress. The subtle movement of his fingers had become her anchor, a sign that he was still fighting to return. One night, the air was cool and still, the moonlight casting silver lines across the floor. Anna brought her chair closer to the bed and sat, exhaustion tugging at her shoulders. She had spent the entire day handling extra shifts to pay for her mother's new medication. The fatigue in her eyes was hidden behind determination. She adjusted Ethan's blanket and exhaled slowly. "It has been one of those days, Mr. Ward," she whispered. "Sometimes I wonder if I am strong enough to keep doing this. But then I remember you. You do not give up, so I cannot either." Her voice trembled slightly as she continued. "There is something I have not told you. The night before your accident, I was in the same part of the city. I saw the news about the crash on my way home. I never thought that the man they were talking about would end up being my patient." Ethan listened, his heartbeat steady but full of emotion. She smiled faintly. "I guess fate has a strange sense of humor." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then, as she reached for his hand to check his pulse, she whispered almost shyly, "You know, sometimes I talk so much because I am afraid of what the silence might say. But lately, it feels like you are the only one who truly listens. Maybe that is why I am telling you this now." Her voice lowered until it was barely a whisper. "I think I have started to care about you, Ethan." The words hung in the air like a confession she had not meant to speak aloud. She covered her mouth and laughed softly, embarrassed. "Listen to me, talking to someone who cannot even answer back. Maybe I have lost my mind." But the heart monitor responded with a faint, rising rhythm. Her eyes darted toward the screen, her breath catching. "Oh my... Did you just?" Ethan's fingers twitched again, more clearly this time. She gasped and leaned forward. "Ethan, if you can hear me, please, do it again." Nothing happened for a moment. Then his hand moved slight, but undeniable. Anna's eyes filled with tears. "You heard me. You actually heard me." Her laughter broke into sobs of relief, her hand clasping his tightly. "You are still in there. I knew it. I knew you were." Ethan's mind was spinning. Every word she had said struck through the walls he had built. Her confession was real, raw, and unguarded. He had pretended to be asleep to uncover lies, yet here she was, offering him the only truth he could trust. For the first time, guilt pierced through his resolve. He had deceived everyone, including her, but now, the thought of hurting her was unbearable. When Dr. Harris entered moments later, Anna wiped her tears quickly. "Doctor, he moved again twice this time. I think he is responding to sound and emotion." The doctor examined the monitors, nodding slowly. "Remarkable. Keep documenting everything. If this continues, we might be looking at a recovery." Anna smiled, exhausted but glowing with renewed purpose. As the doctor left, she turned back to Ethan. "You gave me hope tonight," she whispered. "Now it is my turn to give it back to you." The night grew quiet again, but the silence was no longer empty. It carried the pulse of two hearts, learning to speak the same unspoken language. And for the first time since his accident, Ethan Ward, hidden behind his own deception, felt something more powerful than fear or control. He felt love. Morning arrived with a hush of anticipation. St. Mary's Hospital felt different that day. Nurses whispered in the hallway, and even the machines seemed to hum softer, as if aware that something extraordinary was unfolding inside room 81. Ethan Ward's progress had turned into quiet gossip among the staff. The billionaire who had been asleep for months was showing signs of life. Yet only Anna Monroe knew what those signs truly meant. She had seen his tears. She had felt his hand move. She had heard his silence speak louder than words. When she entered his room that morning, sunlight spilled across the white sheets. She smiled and greeted him softly. "Good morning, Ethan. You did not sleep all day yesterday. Maybe today will be the day you open those eyes." He did not move, but she sensed the tension in the air, the faint tremor beneath her fingertips as she adjusted his IV line. As she turned to record his vitals, a sudden sound made her freeze. The heart monitor changed rhythm, rising and steadying in quick succession. Her eyes darted back to him. His eyelids fluttered. "Ethan?" she whispered, her heart pounding. Slowly, painfully, his eyes opened. The light stabbed at them, and he blinked several times before focusing on the figure standing beside him. For a moment, confusion clouded his expression, then relief. Anna gasped and pressed the call button. "Dr. Harris, he is awake. Ethan is awake." The door burst open as doctors and nurses rushed in. Questions filled the air, monitors beeped faster, and Anna stepped back, tears shining in her eyes. Ethan looked around, disoriented but aware. His lips moved slightly, the sound barely a whisper. You stayed. Anna covered her mouth with trembling hands. Always, she breathed. Dr. Harris leaned in, checking his pupils and motor response. Mr. Ward, you are very lucky. You have been unresponsive for almost 4 months. Try not to speak too much yet. You need rest. Ethan nodded faintly, but his gaze stayed on Anna. By evening, the hospital board had been notified. Reporters gathered outside. The return of Ethan Ward, the sleeping tycoon, was already making headlines. But behind the walls of his recovery room, the truth was far more fragile than the news would ever know. When the last of the staff left, Anna returned with a cup of warm water. Ethan's voice was still weak. How long? He asked. 4 months since the accident, she said softly. You woke up this morning. You scared us all, Mr. Ward. He smiled faintly. Ethan. Call me Ethan. She hesitated, then nodded. All right, Ethan? He studied her face, seeing the exhaustion and gentleness that had carried him through his silence. You were here every day, he said. I remember your voice. Her eyes widened. You? Remember? Every word, he whispered. You talked about your mother, your dreams, the music. Anna's heart raced. Then you knew? You could hear me all this time? He paused, guilt flickering behind his tired eyes. Yes, I could hear you. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The truth hung between them, heavy and fragile. She stepped back slightly, her face pale. You heard everything, she said slowly. And you never said a word. I could not, he replied, voice thick with regret. At first, I stayed silent to find out who tried to hurt me. But then, I stayed because of you. Her eyes filled with tears, not from joy this time, but from shock. You lied. You let me believe you were helpless. He reached out, his voice breaking. Anna, please. I never meant to hurt you. But she turned away, tears spilling freely. You made me talk to a ghost, she said, trembling. You made me believe in something pure, while you were testing everyone around you. Before he could answer, Dr. Harris returned with test results, and the moment shattered. Anna forced a smile and stepped back. Rest, Mr. Ward. You need time to recover. Her voice was calm, professional, distant. Ethan watched her leave the room, the echo of the word, Mr., cutting deeper than any wound. The door closed softly, leaving him alone again, awake at last, but facing the coldest silence he had ever known. The following days at St. Mary's Hospital were filled with commotion. News of Ethan Ward's awakening spread through the building like fire. Reporters gathered outside, television crews waited in the parking lot, and every doctor who passed his room wore the same look of curiosity and awe. But inside room 81, the atmosphere was cold. Anna Monroe did her rounds as usual, calm and professional. She checked his vitals, noted his progress, and avoided eye contact. The warmth that once filled the room was gone. Ethan watched her quietly, the words he wanted to say trapped somewhere between apology and fear. On the third morning after his awakening, his half-brother, Nathan Ward, entered the room dressed in an expensive gray suit. His smile was practiced and shallow. Welcome back, brother, he said smoothly. We were beginning to think you would never wake up. Ethan studied him in silence, his expression unreadable. You look disappointed, he said finally. Nathan laughed softly. Do not be ridiculous. The company has been running fine. I handled everything in your absence. You should rest. Let me take care of the hard parts. Anna, standing by the monitor, sensed the tension in Ethan's voice. She remembered the whispers she had overheard from staff rumors that Ethan's accident might not have been accidental. When Nathan left, Ethan turned to her. Anna, he said quietly, please, sit down. She hesitated but obeyed, keeping her distance. I need to ask you for something, he continued. There are files on my tablet, financial records, transactions, that prove someone tampered with my car's maintenance reports. I need them. Her tone was sharp. Why ask me? You have people for that. Lawyers, assistants, a brother who seems very eager to help. He flinched at her words. Because I trust you, he said softly. She shook her head. You should have trusted me before you lied. Ethan leaned forward, wincing slightly from the effort. I am sorry, Anna. I thought I was doing the right thing. I wanted to expose the people who hurt me. but I never expected you to be the one who saved me." "Oh." Her eyes softened for a moment before she looked away. "You put me in a position that could cost me my job." Dr. Harris is already asking questions about my emotional involvement. "People think I crossed a line." Ethan's expression darkened. "That is not fair. You did nothing wrong." She gave a tired smile. "In this world, fairness has very little to do with the truth." Later that evening, Ethan asked Dr. Harris for permission to speak with his legal team. When the doctor left the room, Ethan pulled up the files he had requested. The data confirmed what he had feared: his half-brother had authorized the maintenance on the company vehicle hours before the crash. The signature was forged, but the digital trace was clear. That night, as the city lights flickered beyond the hospital windows, Anna returned to check on him one last time before leaving her shift. She found him staring at the tablet, his jaw tight. "I was right," he said quietly. "Nathan tried to kill me." Anna's breath caught. "You have proof?" He nodded. "Enough to destroy him, but I need to be careful. I will not risk losing you again because of another lie." She looked at him for a long moment, torn between anger and compassion. "You cannot fix everything overnight," she said. "Start by telling the truth. To everyone." He nodded slowly, his voice low but determined. "Tomorrow. I will tell them tomorrow." When she left the room, the hallway lights dimmed behind her. Ethan lay back against the pillows, feeling both stronger and emptier than ever. The world finally knew he was alive, but without Anna's trust, he had never felt more alone. Outside, rain began to fall against the windows once more. It was the same rain that had filled his nights with her voice, and now it only reminded him of everything he had broken in his search for the truth. The next morning, the hospital lobby was crowded with cameras and flashing lights. Reporters shouted questions as Ethan Ward, dressed in a simple gray suit, was wheeled into the press conference area. The world had been waiting to hear from him, the billionaire who had returned from a coma, but no one expected what he was about to say. Anna Monroe stood quietly at the back of the room, uncertain if she should even be there. Her hands trembled as she clutched the strap of her bag. She had finished her shift an hour earlier, but could not bring herself to leave. Ethan looked pale but calm. When the microphones were adjusted, he cleared his throat and began. "Thank you for being here. There are things I must confess." His voice was steady, carrying the weight of months of silence. "The truth is, I was not unconscious for all of those months. I pretended to be unresponsive so that I could learn who I could trust." Gasps filled the room. Cameras clicked rapidly. "I discovered betrayal," he continued. "But I also discovered something far greater: kindness. A nurse named Anna Monroe reminded me that humanity cannot be measured by power or wealth." He turned toward the crowd, his gaze finding her. "She showed me compassion when I deserved none, and she is the reason I am standing here today." Anna froze, her heart pounding. Every camera turned toward her, flashes lighting up her face. Ethan went on. "My silence hurt her, and for that, I am deeply sorry. I ask for her forgiveness publicly because the world should know what true integrity looks like." The reporters erupted with questions, but Ethan raised his hand. "As for the company, I am pressing charges against those who endangered my life. Justice will be done. But the greater justice is learning that love and honesty are stronger than greed." When it ended, Anna tried to slip out quietly, but Ethan's voice stopped her. "Anna," he called softly. "Stay." She turned slowly, tears in her eyes. He stepped toward her, his voice trembling but sure. "You once said talking to me helped you more than it helped me. But the truth is, you saved my life long before I ever woke up." In that moment, surrounded by lights and whispers, Anna realized his words were not for the cameras, they were for her alone. And for the first time since he opened his eyes, she believed him. 6 months later, spring returned to Chicago. The air carried the scent of blooming magnolias outside St. Mary's Hospital, and a soft warmth replaced the winter chill that had once surrounded Ethan Ward's story. Anna Monroe walked through the familiar hallways, now carrying a badge that read Director, Patient Care, and Recovery Foundation. The hospital had partnered with Ethan to open a new division, the Listen Foundation, dedicated to improving communication with patients who could not speak for themselves. It was her dream brought to life, built from the very silence that had once separated them. That afternoon, she stepped onto the rooftop garden where a small gathering was taking place. White string lights swayed gently above the tables. Ethan stood near the railing, the evening sunlight soft on his face. He turned as she approached, his smile quiet but genuine. "You did it," he said. "Your foundation is already changing lives." Anna shook her head with a modest laugh. "No, we did it. You gave me the chance." He took a deep breath, reaching into his pocket. In his hand lay a simple silver ring tied with a ribbon and a folded piece of paper. "Do you remember the note you left by my bed?" he asked. "The one that said, 'If you can hear me, do not give up.' I kept it." Her eyes filled with tears as he opened the paper. Inside was her old handwriting, faded, but clear. "Anna Monroe," he said softly, "you taught me that healing is not only for the body, it is for the soul. You reminded me that love is the truest form of medicine. Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that to you?" The crowd fell silent as Anna covered her mouth, overcome with emotion. Then she nodded, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Yes, Ethan, I will." Applause rose around them as he slipped the ring onto her finger. As the sun dipped below the skyline, music began to play Clair de Lune, the same melody that had once filled a lonely hospital room. Ethan drew her close, their hands intertwined. For a long moment, neither spoke. They simply stood together in the soft glow of the lights. Proof that even in silence, love can find its voice. And as the city lights flickered below, Anna whispered, "You pretended to be asleep, Ethan, but you woke up my heart.